It can be hard balancing taking care of kids, senior loved ones, and yourself. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. There's a reason 29 million families have turned to Care.com. Find background-checked sitters, nannies, and senior caregivers who can help with everything from watching kids after school to senior meal prep. Whether you need full-time, part-time, or even occasional help, you can view rates and book highly rated caregivers that fit your budget and schedule. Get the help you need with Care.com.
It's Saturday the 31st of August. I'm Ciara Evans, and this was a week that saw dire warnings from Labour on austerity. Keir Starmer take a European road trip. The Paralympics get underway in Paris, and tributes to a football legend.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
While everyone was hoping to have a relaxing bank holiday weekend, the papers were filled with grim warnings about a speech from Prime Minister Keir Starmer that was scheduled for Tuesday morning. The leaked text suggested that unpopular decisions were on the way. A Minister for the Cabinet Office, Pat McFadden, was warning Channel 4 News that the government has to prioritise.
It's important that everyone who's on pension credit claims it. They will continue to get the winter fuel payment. I understand why there's unhappiness about this. It's a very difficult decision that the Chancellor had to take.
Sure enough, on Tuesday morning, Prime Minister Keir Starmer made his highly anticipated speech on the economy, and in a grim twist on the traditional Labour anthem, he was warning things can only get worse. The new government continues to struggle with the level of debt left by Rishi Sunak's Tories, and Starmer says that 14 years of Tory governments has left the UK in poor shape. The theme of his speech was fix the foundations, and he said that the recent riots are a reflection of the chaos and disorder that needs to be fixed.
That's what we've inherited. Not just an economic black hole, a societal black hole. And that's why we have to take action and do things differently. Things will get worse before they get better.
The Tories were quick to claim that Labour has always planned to raise taxes and hinted that Starmer is deliberately playing up the scale of the issue, much like George Osborne and David Cameron did in 2010. Former Labour Minister Jonathan Ashworth disagreed, pointing out the Office of Budgetary Responsibility has launched a formal inquiry into the public finances.
This is a serious and honest speech from Keir Starmer. He wants to level with the British public about the state of the country the Labour government have inherited, and saying to the public he's going to take the tough decisions to fix them, and when you fix the finances, you can start rebuilding this country for the better. The
grim warnings of hard times have brought the October budget into sharp focus. Chancellor Rachel Reeves was quizzed on Wednesday about what she had in mind, with a focus on whether or not both capital gains tax and inheritance tax might be cranked up in a bid to fill the £22 billion hole in the public finances. She wasn't giving much away, though.
We're going to have to make difficult decisions in a range of areas. On spending, on welfare and tax, we're going to have to make a series of difficult decisions, but I'll set out that detail in the right and proper way on the 30th of October at that budget.
Dame Claire Moriarty is the Chief Executive of Citizens Advice for England and Wales, and she says despite the threatened austerity, the government needs to review its plans to cut the winter fuel payments.
We do believe that there are systems that could be put in place to make sure that targeted support is available. We recognise that the government has inherited a big problem, but it needs action now.
Throughout the week, the political storm over the government's decision to scrap winter fuel payments didn't seem to be dying down. The first step in cuts, which was cancelling of winter fuel payments for about 10 million people who were not on pension credit or benefits, seems to have backfired. Now Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey says he's planning to challenge the decision in a move that looks like an attempt to seize the mantle of the official opposition.
Liberal Democrats said in the election we'd fight for a fair deal for people, and I think the least the Parliament needs to do is have a debate, have a vote, and hopefully reject this proposal. It looks like the government's first big mistake.
As the Tories continue with their six-way leadership contest, former Chancellor Nadeem Zawi is warning that while the candidates wrestle with each other, they're losing ground.
Other political parties, much more organised than ourselves, will fill that space, and I think that's a very dangerous place for my party.
After grim warnings about the impending austerity reboot, Prime Minister Keir Starmer headed off on a little European road trip on Wednesday. He began in Germany as part of a mission to reset the UK's relationship with Europe, but still avoiding the question of Brexit. He met with Chancellor Olaf Scholz and revealed they're planning a treaty which will improve cooperation on trade, defence and on illegal immigration.
A new UK-Germany treaty, a once-in-a-generation chance to deliver for working people. A new agreement, a testament to the depth and potential of our relationship.
The German Chancellor was warmly welcoming of the potential reset between the two countries and congratulated Starmer on his election victory.
Germany and the United Kingdom are good friends, close partners and trusted allies. The both of us will be working hard to ensure that this relationship will continue to thrive.
Starmer's German visit was followed by a trip to Paris to attend the opening of the Paralympic Games, and he was hinting that there might be some future agreement for the Youth Mobility Exchange, although Number 10 had previously ruled it out. The PM met with French President Emmanuel Macron on Thursday to discuss trade and the Middle East and the situation in Ukraine. He also took time to confirm that the UK government is looking at a plan to ban smoking in some outdoor places, including pub gardens, outdoor restaurants and sports grounds. It comes amid concerns over the continuing risk from tobacco, which kills over 80,000 people every year.
I do support the measures. Obviously, the detail will be set out in due course. But I want us to move to a smoke-free environment. I want to reduce those preventable deaths. I want to reduce the burden on the NHS.
A YouGov poll finds that most people agree with him, with only 35% opposing the idea. One of the 35% is, of course, Reform UK's Nigel Farage, who mounted a one-man protest with a cigarette outside his local pub. On a more serious note, Kate Nichols, the CEO of UK Hospitality, an umbrella group for the licensed trade, says the new ban could have a devastating effect on business.
This would be a significant hit. In the decade since the smoking ban was introduced in indoor areas, we saw the loss of 10% of our pubs and nightclubs, and this would be a significant impact, again, not just on pubs and nightclubs, but also on those wider eating out areas.
This week has seen Russia launch massive attacks on Ukraine, including over 200 missiles and drones in a single night on Monday, largely targeting Ukraine's energy sector. At least 6 people were killed in the strike, which hit 15 different regions, and the Kyiv hydroelectric power plant. One of Ukraine's new F-16 jets also crashed, killing the pilot while shooting down oncoming Russian missiles. Ukraine President Zelensky says it's one of the biggest airstrikes that they've seen in the war so far, and that there's an urgent need for more air defence systems for Ukraine, and that it's time for Western allies to drop the ban on Ukraine striking Russian targets.
There can be no limits for Ukraine in long-rangeness when terrorists don't have these limits. Defenders of life cannot have limits on weapons. America, Britain, France, and other partners have the power to help us stop the terror. Decisions are needed.
The strike appears to be partly in retaliation for the ongoing Ukrainian incursion in the Kursk region, and Vladimir Putin addressed his Security Council on Monday. However, as the Kursk invasion continues, it doesn't sound like he's intending to end Russia's invasion of Ukraine anytime soon.
Economic policy in the period up to 2030 includes the strengthening of the economic base for the successful ending of the special military operation. This, as I've mentioned many times before, is the main condition for carrying out long-term plans of Russia's development.
Meanwhile, Ukraine continues to use its long-range capabilities to strike targets within Russia, and President Zelensky had news on a major new development that will alarm Vladimir Putin.
There was a positive test of the first Ukrainian ballistic missile. I congratulate our military and defense industry on this. I can't share any more details about this missile, but nevertheless, this is an achievement.
Ukraine continues to push its Western allies to allow even more use of long-range weapons. But Matthew Saville, who is the Director of Military Services at the Royal United Services Institute, thinks that Ukraine's own drone programme is pretty impressive.
Whilst those Western-supplied weapons would be useful against the kind of things that are launching glide bombs, the drone programme is a better bet for striking these longer-range bomber bases.
Ukraine continued to strike long-range targets in Russia on Wednesday, hitting oil depots in Kirov and Rostov. They also continue their incursion in Russia's Kursk region, as the CII director suggested that Ukrainian forces are now building defences and appear to intend holding on to the territory gained. The UK and Germany reaffirmed their support for Ukraine for as long as it takes. A military analyst, Hamish de Bretton-Gordon, says that despite Russia's continued push in Donetsk, Ukraine's allies are optimistic.
They're in a really strong position. Of course, I think everybody in the world wants peace. in Ukraine, but peace on Ukraine's terms. And that's what's vital. We are the ones, I think, that have got to lead the way here.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba was in Brussels on Thursday for a meeting with EU foreign ministers. He was there to urge European allies to speed up the delivery of promised air defence systems as Ukraine braces for more waves of Russian missile attacks. The strikes on Monday did serious damage to Ukraine's energy capability, and Zelensky's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, accused Vladimir Putin of a deliberate decision to threaten the world with nuclear disaster. Ukrainian historian Serhiy Plokhy says people are not taking the risk of a nuclear incident seriously enough.
The nuclear disasters that happened so far, they happened without war happening on the site. Now the chances of another accident has increased dramatically. But there is also a chance that certainly Russians could try to use some sort of an accident as a diversion.
Donald Trump had a full-on meltdown on social media on Wednesday evening, posting QAnon memes and included demands that Barack Obama be tried by a military tribunal for unspecified crimes. He's furious that Special Prosecutor Jack Smith has lodged what is called a superseding injunction in the January 6th election interference case. Smith has trimmed down his case, removing any elements that would conflict with the Supreme Court immunity ruling, and is pushing for a speedy trial. Trump had hoped that his legal troubles might have been at an end after the Supreme Court intervention, but CNN legal analyst Norm Eisen says it's really important that Trump face justice for his actions around the 2020 election.
Jack Smith, with a new superseding indictment less than 70 days away from the election, has reminded everybody Donald Trump is alleged to have engaged in very serious 2020 election interference. Will he do it again in 2024?
Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris and her potential VP Tim Walz sat down for their first formal media interview on Thursday night. They spoke to Dana Bash on CNN, and Harris performed well, challenging Donald Trump's worldview.
I think sadly we have had in the former president someone who is diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation, and I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
She also refused to be drawn on Trump's comments about her own racial identity and the suggestion that she turned black.
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
Still to come in the Standout 7, Oasis bury the hatchet and tributes to England's first foreign manager.
Right after this.
It can be hard balancing taking care of kids, senior loved ones, and yourself. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. There's a reason 29 million families have turned to Care.com. Find background-checked sitters, nannies, and senior caregivers who can help with everything from watching kids after school to senior meal prep. Whether you need full-time, part-time, or even occasional help, you can view rates and book highly rated caregivers that fit your budget and schedule. Get the help you need with Care.com.
Welcome back.
It's been another difficult week in the Middle East as no significant progress appeared to be made towards a ceasefire agreement. The week began with an exchange of blows between Israel and Hezbollah as the Israeli Air Force launched what they called a preemptive strike on Hezbollah rocket launchers on Sunday. The strike was followed by a wave of Hezbollah drone attacks, but Israel's Defence Minister Yoav Gallant said that 2/3 of the planned attack failed. Secretary General of Hezbollah Hassan Nasrallah issued a stern warning to Israel after the Sunday attacks.
We will not be humiliated. The blood subject to injustice will achieve victory. This enemy must be very cautious and understand very well the real nature of Lebanon. It's no longer the weak Lebanon which you can invade.
There was fierce criticism within Israeli for the limited nature of the preemptive strikes, with members of the far-right coalition calling for a broader aerial campaign in Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continued to sound defiant, however.
I ask you, citizens of Israel, to obey the directives of the Home Front Command. We are determined to do everything to protect our country and continue to uphold a simple rule. Whoever hurts us, we hurt him.
An Israeli delegation travelled to Doha on Wednesday to continue ceasefire talks with US, Qatari and Egyptian officials. There was good news as another hostage was recovered alive in what the IDF called a complex operation that saw Quaid Farhan al-Qadi freed from a tunnel in the southern Gaza Strip. He's only the 8th hostage to be rescued since October 7th, and Israeli sources believe there are still 108 hostages somewhere within Gaza, although it's not known how many may be dead. Israeli government spokesman David Mencer announced details of the rescue and said Israel remains focused.
Our mission is very, very clear. We want to get all of our hostages home. We want to make sure that Hamas is destroyed. And of course, we don't want to be here in another 18 months' time.
Tuesday morning saw the whole world briefly go mad. That's because at 8 a.m, Oasis finally announced a reunion and a series of comeback gigs that fans have been waiting for since 2009. Birmingham City University estimates that the stadium gigs, which include Wembley, Heaton Park in Manchester and Croke Park in Dublin, could make £400 million. That means as long as they stay civil, Noel and Liam could pick up £50 million each, which is more than Oasis ever made in the 90s. John Robb runs the Louder Than More music website, and he says, cash aside, it's a significant cultural moment.
I think nostalgia is a big part of pop culture. And I think because there's such a generational defining band, a lot of people I was speaking to were a little younger than me. It's a big moment. This is a moment in their lives when everything felt possible.
The death was announced on Bank Holiday Monday of former England manager Sven-Göran Eriksson. His passing wasn't a surprise. He'd been very open about his terminal cancer diagnosis and had tackled his bucket list with great gusto, including getting the chance to manage Liverpool for a game back in March. The Swede was England's first ever overseas manager, and he led England's golden generation to the quarterfinals of 3 major tournaments. Former England captain David Beckham was among those paying tribute. His death came only days after a Prime Video documentary simply called Sven, in which he addressed his feelings on his impending death. Rest in peace, Sven.
I have no pain, but I know it's there. One day it will take you. Before that day, live. Instead of sitting down thinking about what and when will it happen.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It can be hard balancing taking care of kids, senior loved ones, and yourself. Remember, it's okay to ask for help. There's a reason 29 million families have turned to Care.com. Find background-checked sitters, nannies, and senior caregivers who can help with everything from watching kids after school to senior meal prep. Whether you need full-time, part-time, or even occasional help, you can view rates and book highly rated caregivers that fit your budget and schedule. Get the help you need with Care.com.